So with the new season of my Blood Bowl League quickly approaching, it is time for me to get started on painting the new team that I'm fielding. I've selected a necromantic team and just uploaded a video a few days ago with the team highlighted, and selected the flesh golem, or one of the flesh golems to start with. So let's jump in. So the miniature's already been primed, and I'm starting off with a base coat of German camo black-brown from the Vallejo model color line. I actually have blatantly stolen the flesh color scheme that the painting clinic here on YouTube uses. So my first layer, if you will, the bottom is just going to be this German camo black-brown. It's really to cover up the gray. Once once this thing is painted up, none of this will really show through, but it'll just cover the gray, give a nice little base for the next layer to sit on top of. Now once the German camo black-brown is just evenly coated over all the flesh of the miniature, I move forward with painting again over that with Vallejo Panzer Ace's line of their Shadows flesh. So this is a deep, I guess reddish flesh color that really will just go over the entire thing that I've just painted. So because it's a little bit of a reddish tint, without the camo black-brown, I found that the lighter colors show through, and I need a thicker layer of this. So that's why I like the recipe. I can just go with a black-brown over the whole thing, nice even coat, then come back through with the shadow flesh, hit all the exact same pieces, or exact same parts with that. Careful to make sure I'm getting it into all the recesses and covering up all of the previous layer. Now, if you are not a subscriber of the painting clinic, Dr. Faust's painting clinic, I would highly recommend you do so. The entire method I use for painting flesh with a brush, I absolutely learned from him. I can't speak highly enough for the work that he does. Okay, so once the entire miniature has been coated with the Shadows flesh, I use a 50-50 mixture of the Shadow flesh with the Vallejo Panzer Ace's flesh base. So it's kind of the next step up in that triad that they make. And on this one, I'll hit all of the the top areas, leaving very little of the shadow flesh showing. Maybe underneath at the armpits or under the legs, you might see some of that shadow flesh come through. But at this point, I think I'm going to hit the vast majority of the model with this new mixture, leaving very little of the other stuff to show through. After the 50-50 mixture of the shadow flesh and flesh base, then I move on to just a straight coat of the flesh base from the Panzer Ace's line. And this one I'm really coating most of the miniature with this. I guess the idea or the thought here is that this will be the primary color that's used, or that you see. So of the muscles, especially in like the abdomen area, inside of the legs, leaving only a little bit of that previous layer to show through. And because I'm using the airbrush, I can do it really thin. Because this is my first attempt with the airbrush, you know, I am a little bit sloppier than probably some of the pros that are out there. I'm definitely sloppier than a lot of the pros that are out there. So the current mix I'm working with is now 50% of the flesh base and 50% highlights flesh. And that's the third paint set in the Vallejo Panzeraces line, you know, for their flesh. So you know, even amounts, and I'm trying to focus primarily on just the you know, the higher points of the muscles, the places where the light will hit the most, and really kind of create the contrast, bring things out. So the face, top of the head, top of the shoulder muscles, biceps, tops of the quads, knee, that kind of thing. Now, because this is my first time using, well, it's my first time using this airbrush. I normally use the Patriot 105 from Badger for all of my airbrushing work, because to this point my airbrushing work's really been priming models, maybe doing base coats, also sealing. But as I wanted to get a little bit more detail work done, I purchased, you know, several months back a Renegade Velocity. I wanted the smaller needle tip to be able to get closer, and this is really my first time experimenting with lowering the pressure way down and getting the airbrush real close to do the detail work. And you know, I'm finding that I like it. I think after doing this one, being able to get some of those on the back there, some of those muscles, and try to get just the tops of them, I'm finding I like it. It's just requiring a lot more control than I'm used to. But I read and I hear that with practice that'll be a little bit better. So again, just trying to stay tight and follow the definition that's already been sculpted into the model. And then for the final highlight layer, I actually mixed in a little more of the highlight flesh to the previous mixture. So, you know, I did it in a cup. So if I had to guess, it's probably 2 parts highlight flesh to 1 part flesh base. And really this one is just trying to hit the real high points and create that contrast. But you know, as you can see, it's still a little difficult for me, and I'm getting into some of the, you know, the cracks and crevices that I was hoping to stay away from. It's okay, because I plan on the next step going back in with some pigments to kind of deepen the shadows and create more of that contrast. So it's not a terrible thing. I did probably over highlight just a little more than I wanted to, but knowing that I'd be able to clean it up a little bit later, I wasn't that concerned. Okay, so as I finished up with the highlighting, I realized that I had wanted to actually paint a couple of the body parts a slightly different color, and to make it, you know, kind of make it look like that whole Frankenstein, you know, flesh golem put together from parts of different donors. And so here I just masked the whole thing with Silly Putty, and I'm going back over with a 50-50 mixture of the shadow flesh, but instead of using the flesh base, I've replaced it with a brown sand to give it more of a, just more of a brown color. And also need to fix the Silly Putty where my finger moved there a little bit. So once I had that done, then I just kind of worked back up the highlighting scheme again, using just a straight brown sand this time to highlight up from the previous mixture, trying to hit the higher points and to get rid of the pinkish tint that the previous color that was on there would have left behind. Now I did highlight with the highlights flesh, so what I'm putting on now is about an even mixture, 50-50 of the brown sand and highlights flesh to, again, to try to hit the tops of the muscles and bring that contrast there. And then again for the final layer, it's probably roughly 2-part highlight flesh to 1 part brown sand. And again, trying to focus on real small amounts, although my airbrush work isn't as fine as it hopefully will be in the future. It definitely isn't as fine as it needs to be. But this is just my first time doing it, so we'll see how it turns out. Oh, and fumble it around there a bit. There we go. So when I'm done, I just seal the whole thing with matte varnish, and that'll get me ready for the next step, which will be the pigments. And that's done, so I should be able to get that video up and posted within the next few days to move on to the next step. I think it turned out pretty good, and we'll see how it goes from there. Thanks for watching. Appreciate your time.